This is one of our very first global influencer webinars, and we'll be covering how your brand can make an impact with influencer marketing campaigns. Just to introduce myself, my name is Ellie Davies. I'm the Influencer Partnerships Manager in the UK at Awin, and I'll be one of your hosts today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simone Beltzer. I will be co-hosting today with the wonderful Ellie. I'm working within the DACH region as Key Account Partnership Manager, focusing on influencer cooperations. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, I'm Michaela Gingell, and I'm the Content and Influencer Manager at the UK Key Account Management team at Awin. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Really excited for today.
Thanks so much, both. I think we can move to the next slide now. We want to start things off by firstly checking that the chatbot function is working, and also asking where you're dialing in from today. Just to let you know, you'll be able to ask questions there throughout the whole webinar, and right at the end, Michaela will be taking us through them. She can direct them to the relevant panelists, but let us know if there's any direct questions that you want to ask, and we can hopefully get through them all, and we'll follow up afterwards if not.
Yes, perfect. Next slide, please. We are very excited to have such a fantastic panel here with us today. All of them are experts in the influencer field with many years of experience, and we're very happy for you to meet them all. I think it's best if you all quickly introduce yourselves. Fatih, do you want to go first?
Simone, so I'm Fatih. I lead marketing globally at VAMP. For those of you who aren't familiar with VAMP, we're an Aussie tech startup. We provide an influencer platform that helps brands manage the end-to-end life cycle of their creative collaborations.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome. Isabella, do you want to go next? Oh, you're on mute.
Classic. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabella. I'm really excited to be here today alongside such fantastic panelists. I'm heading the brand partnerships team here at LTK, also formerly known as Reward Style, maybe to some of you, in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
Thank you for joining us. Alex, do you want to go next?
I will. Can I just say thank you to Isabella as well for doing the first speaking without unmuting. I thought it was going to be me, but well done, Isabella. Thank you for leading us off in that way. My name is Alex Payne. I've been a television presenter for about 20 years, predominantly at Sky Sports here in the UK, which has been a lot of fun traveling around the world. And I've now founded a tech business called Room Unlocked, which has been born out of, I suppose, the other side of the marketplace. And we now connect brands with celebrities and influencers over mutually beneficial collaboration. So nobody gets paid. It's all about connecting the brands with the people that love them. And we see some really astonishing results off the back of that brand love. So really pleased to be here today. Thanks for having us, and looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining. Next up, Isabella, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, good morning. So really excited to get started for today. So I'm Isabel. I'm Head of Service Delivery for Influence Network. We're a tech startup, and we kind of specialize in scaling micro-influencer campaigns. We can operate in any country, any language, anywhere, basically, on any scale. So yeah, looking forward to today.
Wonderful. Great to have you all with us today. Let's move on to the next slide, please. To kick off the webinar, we would like to share a few insights about what I have experienced when working with several clients. For the last couple of years, advertisers have asked us to find new publisher verticals next to voucher cashback sites, and content marketing has become one of the key pillars for most of the advertiser programs in the past. So with influencer marketing being such a success these days, we felt we had to comply with our advertiser needs. And therefore, Awin has partnered with multiple global influencer networks to ensure great content creation combined with a strong focus on performance marketing. We recently, and this is what it's shown here, we recently asked some of our DACH key account partners if influencer marketing is relevant for them, and 73% of this group answered yes or maybe. Only few advertisers answered with no. And I have to say, not all partners have started with influencer marketing campaigns due to internal budget splits with other departments, different KPIs, or the limitation of resources such as budget and staff. Now, of course, we're all interested in your thoughts from the audience, so please use the chat box and let us know on your situation. Next slide, please. We also asked this group of advertisers what their primary goal for influencer marketing was. Interesting enough, but not surprising, is that the majority of focused on performance and branding through influencer marketing. But personally, I find it very interesting that promoting new products to creators seems to be less relevant, because from my experience, influencer campaigns have helped a lot when promoting new product lines. So I'm eager to see what the panelists think about this. And again, please use the chat box for your comments on this and let us know what your primary goal for influencer marketing is. Next slide.
Thanks so much, Simone. So just before we move on to the questions section of the webinar, we wanted to highlight the influencer partners that our panelists are joining us from today. We've also noted down the minimum requirements of each of the partners, and we'll be sharing this as a one-slider along with a few other follow-up newsletters next week. So LTK, formerly Reward Style, is a global influencer marketing platform serving over 250,000 creators, over 6,000 brands, and millions of shoppers worldwide. The VAMP platform is an influencer marketing solution connecting brands and creators for complete lifecycle management. Room Unlocked is an influencer marketing platform for brands to match and connect with authentic brand advocates through gifting. Influence Network is a global cutting-edge AI algorithm custom-built platform to enable agencies and brands to scale their influencer marketing programs. These are just 4 of the amazing influencer platforms, subnetworks, and partners that you can utilize through Awin. So please do reach out to us if you're interested in seeing the complete list. You'll spot our final slide and best contact information a bit later on. But moving on now to the much anticipated questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Ellie. Obviously, we're headed towards Q4, which is the most relevant time of the year for most of our advertisers joining us today. And obviously, everyone is seeking the best placement option possible for their brand. This takes me to my very first question to all of our panelists, and maybe Fatih, you want to start with this one. How should brands work with you and influencers ahead of Q4?
So there's a really obvious opportunity in front of us. We're going into the holiday season, and not just the holiday season. There's these seasonal moments that are coming up. You know, whether you're looking at it from a Halloween perspective, Black Friday, Christmas, and beyond. So I think there's some very key activation opportunities that are there, and you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. I think, you know, what do we all do when we're looking to purchase something? We typically go online, we look for review videos, we look for recommendations, we maybe ask friends, we clearly go on social, we scroll through, we look and see what's in our feeds from creators. And I think the place maybe not to focus so much as from a brand perspective is not to expect that immediate gratification. The chances are when somebody sees your content, they're maybe not in that immediate mindset to go to a purchase straight away. And it's more about building the mind share, maybe getting people to save, favorite, maybe to share some content. And creators obviously are really primed and in a really strong position to be able to help get that message out there. So irrespective of what your kind of go-to-market channel is to gather that information prior to your purchase, and again, whether it's specific to a seasonal moment or not, I think there's some opportunity there. The other thing I would say is just, you know, we'd be remiss of us not to acknowledge the macroeconomic situation that we're in. And so if you are a brand or a marketing team that is maybe considering how to make some decisions that need to be unfortunately dispassionate about perhaps where you pull funding from, to really think about comparing apples to apples when it comes to your performance marketing channels, and really looking at this from the perspective of a return on advertising investment or an ROI perspective, and seeing where you're getting the most bang for your buck, and perhaps making those decisions solely based on the most performative channel that's out there. So those are the 2 things that I would mention.
Thank you. Very interesting. Isabella, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting, Fatih. I actually do believe the same, that in these times, brands really need to look to, you know, like have their ROS be really good. And there are many ways that brands can actually engage with us during this very busy period. I would like to highlight maybe 2. So A is, you know, work with us on making your brand really visible on the platform, because since we have so many retailers, it is really like key to make our creators aware of your brand and aware to be seen with like strong offerings. And let me just start by saying that a competitive CPA or CPO is always like the groundwork that needs to be done. This is nothing that you just, you know, you increase and then you expect magic will happen. This is just like the basics, because our creators are businesses, and you need to understand that our creators will always go for the highest possible earnings alongside with, you know, looking for brands they love and also brands that they know will convert within, you know, their following community. So again, that's just the basic, like aim for a competitive CPA. And then what I would recommend you doing is taking the measures of like hand out strong incentives, such as like great promotions, maybe, you know, use vouchers for creators to use, and then also for them to share with their followers. But it's really, really important to understand that you basically have to fight for your visibility during that peak periods. And we as an influencer network, we don't just work as maybe simple as maybe other publishers do, where you can just give out your promotion and it will be shown on the site, and our creators will eventually really decide on what they'll pick up and who they will link to and who not. And so the other way to work with us in Q4 is also, and a way to kind of like circumvent that is to book direct collaborations. And especially during, you know, Black Friday, Cyber Week, Singles Day, we know that the web is just flooded by coupon codes. You have voucherings, you have offerings that are always better than the others. So just to make sure that your brand really gets picked up and that you're being promoted by the right way and the right set of influencers, and have like a guaranteed visibility, where it also comes back to, you know, the right ROS. I believe that you really need to look into influencer collaborations.
Yeah, very interesting. So basically, influencer marketing can help increase sales very short term, but also build trust and relationships on a long-term basis, and also obviously with creators, depending on what the payment method is. So yeah, thank you so much. Alex, what is your take on this?
I'd pick up on two things. What you were saying there in terms of the building of trust, etc., and what Isabella was saying around influencers working with the brands they love. So I think we have a fundamental belief at Room Unlocked that it's absolutely right to pay the right people to talk about you. And I think we've got 3 examples of companies that are doing that fantastically on the webinar. We are slightly the fish that swims in the opposite direction. So we're all about unlocking brand love. And what that looks like is an enormously powerful layer of amplification around what commercial activity brands are doing in the influencer space, because we will find people who talk about brands because they love, need, and want it. And I'm very conscious not to sort of jump ahead, sort of dive into what does the future of influencer marketing look like. But I do think as we move forwards, and it probably matches up with the macroeconomics that Fatih was talking about and the challenges that brands are going to have, if you can at this point find the people who love you and enable them to talk about you, that is a very powerful seeding of the message from your genuine advocates. They will talk about their interest in your product in their own words, which does provide this very powerful layer of amplification to any commercial activity you're doing. So we believe it's those brands that match the sort of the push marketing of putting their brand onto an influencer's channels via a commercial endorsement, along with finding their way onto the channels of those brands that love them. That mix is going to help them enormously, sort of seeding their message further and wider. So I think it's a very interesting time, obviously with the macro challenges that everybody's facing right now, but where you can put together commercial and contra-based collaborations. I think those are the brands that will get their message further and wider, the awareness that comes off the back of it, and hopefully that sort of truth and transparency and authenticity that you're talking about as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Alex. Isabel, do you want to also add something to it?
Brilliant. Some really good points there, and I think I'll probably touch on a few of them as well. So I think kind of firstly is we're nearly just 2 weeks out of Q4, so I guess it's kind of brands need to start to really act now if they want to do any activations in Q4. Obviously with Christmas coming up as well, that's a really, really busy time, and influencers get booked up really far in advance. So just timing is key there, just trying to get in there as soon as possible. I'd probably say the second one is, rather than just working with influencers on those key events that everyone's touched on, so you've got Halloween, Black Friday, and Christmas, you really want that continuity flowing through. So people are going to start to trust the influencers who are there throughout. So they're talking on a normal day, but not just when it's a key event where it could get a little bit lost amongst everyone posting on those days. So yeah, more of an always-on activation for Q4 would work best. And I think lastly is just the micros. So looking at longer-term projects with micro influencers, which is what we specialize in, can be much better value for the money. We see that if you work with influencers on a longer term, you actually are with them from the start, where their fan base, their following is actually going to grow, and you've already locked in those prices. So if you, for example, want to reach 500,000 people, you're going to need 50 influencers at 10K each. So yeah, just trying to kind of map that out of where you want to sit in that base there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Isabel. I guess that leads us on to the next question, question 2. Something brands are really keen to know is what influencers that they can work with via your platforms. So what does your creator base look like at, sorry, Isabel, we're going to go back to you at Influence Network. What does the creator base look like?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we don't limit ourselves to a database. We basically will use our AI software to scan the most up-to-date data for every influencer on all social platforms. We can go to all channels, all countries as well, and all languages. So to answer that question, I guess it's really, really broad in terms of the database or the creator base. And yeah, so we're not limiting ourselves in that sense. We can operate in any age span as well. We are seeing TikTok is actually majority under 25 creators and under 30 for the audience. So if you're looking for an older target audience, you're kind of going to be leaning more towards Instagram and YouTube. So for example, we're working on a USA book launch at the moment, just to try and get that awareness out there during the pre-launch period. So that is focusing on women aged 35 to 65. And we are leaning towards YouTube and Instagram on those.
Amazing, thank you. And Alex, we'll come to you as well for Room Unlocked. What's your creator base look like?
That's a very good question. So we talk about a community of influential people. Everybody applies to join the platform. I think we accept about 15% of the applicants that we get. So we're quite selective. We're very much about quality rather than quantity. And we tend to divide it up in a number of different ways. First of all, we will have sort of talent first, and they are your household names in music, film, sport, television, fashion, etc. They have normally got a talent and have built an audience off the back of it. And yeah, you would recognize them from what they do. Then on the other side, you've got the digital first, who are the much more sort of traditional influencers in the space of social media and content creation, etc. We're fairly reflective, I think, of the market. We are, I think, about 70% female. We have got sort of a very digital weighting in terms of the split between talent and digital. But it's about opting into what we do, understanding that we are a space where you can kind of collaborate with the brands you love, etc. And therefore, it's very important to us to have not only the people who understand what we do when they enter, but also that they stay with us in that sort of contra element. It's not about sort of commercially finding briefs through us. So yes, it's a big community of about 8,000 fairly influential people in the UK. And about to launch in the US as well. So we'll go again over there.
Amazing, incredible. Isabella, coming to you for the creator base at LTK.
Yeah, so we do have a very diverse creator base. We have currently over 250,000 creators spanning across the globe. And we always make sure that our creators are kind of like representing all ways of life and also all verticals. So like, no matter if you're looking at like nano, micro, macro creators, we have them all. And also while making sure that we always try to be as inclusive as possible on our platform. But we are, after all, a performance platform. So we are not automated, and all of our creators are still handpicked, if you want. And we always ensure to like scout and cast and onboard creators that understand commerce, while, you know, being, again, like very inclusive in that. So we do show, you know, all types, all sorts of body types, all ethnicities, be it male or female. So we do not distinguish between that.
Incredible. And last but not least, the VAMP team. What does the creator base look like at VAMP?
So we have a VAMP community of about 45,000 creators. So we are a invite-only approach, you can call it, where there's a pre-vetting criteria that we apply, and we look at a couple of different dimensions, things like the platform that they're on, there's a minimum threshold for followers or audience size, and then we also look at more qualitative aspects such as the quality of the content, because we have a bar that we ideally want to maintain. And what we do is we're not a search tool, but that's not our bag. We don't ever claim to be, with the biggest, baddest, millions of creators to choose from. I think what our customers want from us is, help us save time, help us go to market really quickly. And so we have built an AI-based algorithm that uses machine learning to understand the parameters of a brief that a brand is submitting to the VAMP platform. And then the algorithm does matchmaking based on a specific kind of aesthetic or the overall goal, objective, or if they want to work with a creator on a specific platform of a specific demographic within a specific vertical. An example of that would be, recently we had an interesting brief from one of our beauty customers that said, we want to, for Pride, we want to work with 40+ male demographic based in the UK that identifies as LGBTQI+, and uses male cosmetics. So things like that can be a little bit tricky, but sort of what Isabella said, we do recruitment on an ongoing basis. Our acceptance rate is probably around 30%. And then we are marketing partners with YouTube, Meta, and TikTok, which means that we use first-party data only to authenticate all of our creators. And so that gives that extra level of trust as well for brands who sometimes come to us saying, well, how do I set rates, or how do I make sure that the performance metrics are going to be where I would like them to be? And because we're pulling all of that information directly from the APIs, from the partners, there's that sort of added level of checks and balances, I guess, that we're able to do as far as the quality of the creative community is concerned.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Very interesting. Let me move over to the next question. I mean, you're all experts in the field of influence marketing. You've probably experienced and seen a lot, so to speak, the good, the bad, the ugly. Looking into Q4, we're curious, what mistakes do brands make when working with influencers, and how can you as a platform guide them? Maybe back at you, Fatih, how can you guide them?
There's probably two areas that I immediately think of. One is creators have built this following because they understand and anticipate the needs of their audiences. Their content resonates, it connects with them, they engage, they build this rapport that happens on an ongoing basis. And I think sometimes where brands can stumble a little bit is when they submit their briefs, being too prescriptive or overtly specific on what you want the creator to do, like mention the brand 17 times, or make sure that you've got a voiceover that hits all these 9 points that we want you to hit, connect on regarding the product, if it's a product activation campaign. And we find ourselves having to sometimes gently remind them that there is a creative expression that comes with creators within the VAMP community, and we have something called the VAMP pledge, which no brand can submit a live brief without agreeing to the tick box terms and conditions of the VAMP pledge, which is effectively you agree to give the creator, within certain reason and within certain guardrails, entire creative freedom to interpret the brief the way that they want. And we do that because we're creator first and we support our community, and we believe that the real magic happens when you give and allow that freedom. But secondly, we've got the proof points to back it up as well, in terms of the metrics and the outputs of when there have been instances where that push and pull has been a little bit full of friction, and the output of what's happened versus what happens when you actually give them that freedom. So I think maybe one thing to take away is trust that your creators are there because they understand the community. Allow them to help you gain these new followers, these new audiences, these new passionate consumers. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just remember that I think one of the panelists said, like, creators are small businesses as well, right? Their livelihood is dependent on this. Sometimes this is their only source of income, and it's really important for them to be able to continue what they're doing, to have that recurring income. And so one of the other stumbling blocks we find is in response times. So brief goes out, creators get excited because it's brands that they love. They want to apply for the campaign. They put themselves forward, and then it's crickets for the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks. And what ends up happening is that the creator gets discouraged. It maybe leaves a negative perception perhaps of that brand, despite them loving it and maybe using their products. But then also the unresponsiveness affects all of the stages of what happens next. So even if they are selected, the quicker brands can respond to things like creative reviews or answering questions or making sure that that line of communication is always happening and flowing, the more successful the campaign, and obviously the accelerated time to market to get those great creative assets out to market. So I think be responsive. And then secondly, just remember that they're the experts, trust them. They're going to authentically do an amazing job promoting your brand, so give them the creative freedom to do that.
Love both of the ideas. Thank you so much. Isabel, have you experienced any bigger mistakes, or what is your advice for creators? Sorry, for advertisers?
Yeah, brilliant points there, Fatima. So I'd say probably one of the biggest ones is brands wanting to run really short campaigns. We've had in the past an experience where a brand wanted to run just a campaign just a couple of weeks long, and I think what we found is that although we could advise against it, they wanted to pursue it, and they just don't get the traction or the conversions in such a short space of time. So we kind of offer packages as a 3-month minimum there, and it gives the influencers and the brand a chance to properly collaborate and really push out that brand awareness message or a product launch, whatever the key outcome is. So I think as long as it's over 3 months or 3 months minimum, then followers can actually gain that trust through the influencer. So that continuity would be kind of number one. We've actually had examples where we've run a campaign which has been an always-on campaign, but as a result, we've had an influencer who's performed so well, we've made the recommendation to the brands that we need to take that influencer into a separate project and just kind of tailor that for them. And we've got a 1-year contract with just one influencer there. And what that benefit is we've locked in that price with the influencer for 9 months, and their following is actually growing massively. So the benefit is the influencer's got that secured, but the brand is actually saving money in that sense. And I'd probably say the second point is brands not repurposing content. So with our managed campaigns, every brand gets 12-month usage rights of all the content the influencers create. So that's all included. But we find that sometimes brands haven't factored that in or thought about what they're going to do with it to really utilize those free images, those free videos, whether it's in a newsletter, on their own social accounts, and their websites, for example. So yeah, I'd say those two. So running always on campaigns and repurposing content.
Perfect.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the always on approach, actually. I know I'm not on the panel, but I agree. Working with the creators from the very beginning all the way to like as they grow is super important. And actually something I saw, I'm going to say in an article, but I definitely saw it on TikTok, was that there was a comment about influencers being partly like a outsourced creative director, which I thought was amazing. So you kind of get that added value there as well, which is incredible when you work with influencers and creators as well. But yeah, moving on to the next question. So we found that Awin advertisers really respond well to case studies and success stories. So question 4 is, what advertiser vertical has been most successful for you to work with so far? I'm going to head to you first, Alex, from Room Unlocked.
That's a very good question. We work across a variety of sectors. And actually what's been quite interesting for our business, I think, is the move over the last 2 years or so during the pandemic. We were very event-based at the start. We had a lot of I suppose O2 would be a very good example of a client who was using us on a almost weekly basis to find people to go to the gigs of their choice, and by unlocking sort of people who want to go and go see Mumford & Sons and Shepherd's Bush or Brittany at the O2. I don't know if those are good examples or not, but you tend to get a lot more content because people are choosing what they want to go to. We have moved much more into that sort of stay-at-home economy over the last 2 years, and we're looking at sort of a lot of makeup brands. We're looking at a lot of companies like HelloFresh, where people are able to create content, create experiences at home using the content that goes to them. But I think for us still, the most popular sector that we operate in is travel. And I think that's probably fairly understandable. I think people being able to work with the brands that they love and the destinations that they are truly passionate about, and to go and create content out of a passion is unbelievably effective. And so I think, as the world starts turning again and we're beginning to get hopefully back to some sort of semblance of normality, the travel sector for us is the one where we tend to see most excitement at the moment.
Amazing. And Isabella, we're coming to you.
Yeah, so I would say traditionally we have been working in fashion and beauty, but since we've grown our community so much, like during the last couple of years, and then as Alex said, especially during the pandemic, when we just saw a lot of creators had to kind of pivot their content due to the fact that they just couldn't promote their traditional verticals anymore. We've seen them going cross vertical, and we always do recommend our creators to promote just as many verticals as they feel comfortable with. I do believe that there will be a shift from like traditional creators being more diverse, also just to make sure that their income will stay steady, because the more they try to diversify their content, the more revenue streams they will open up and they will eventually have. And this doesn't just apply to like verticals, but also to different platforms. So we always recommend our creators to not only use like one social platform, because if you like build your business on, say, Instagram, and then the Instagram algorithm changes, you basically build your business on sand. So we always encourage our creators to, be as diverse with their platforms as possible, as well as with the content that they're promoting. And then also the good thing with, the way we work is we also have a shopping app where creators can just utilize, the link in bio, and then they have everything centralized within one place. And then we encourage the creators to really link as many products as possible, because you will never know what your follower might be interested in. You might be promoting, I don't know, a lipstick, and you believe like it's the lipstick that is going to sell, but then in the end it's, I don't know, it's the lamp behind you, or it's like, I don't know, the books you have in your shelf, or whatever it is. So just try to link as many products as possible. And then you will eventually, go into different verticals, and you will, in your analytics, you will just see what works for you. And then also the brands will be able to see that maybe creators where they thought traditionally, would perform well for them, they might be surprised, who else could really perform for them. So this just opens up, to new audiences for both directions.
Definitely. Thank you.
Great. I think this takes me to my next question. We're currently facing lots of global challenges, starting with post-pandemic crisis, gas crisis, inflation, and obviously many brands are taking these issues into consideration when planning placements for Q4. Fatih, how can creators support brands in future-proofing?
So there's a couple of things, a few of them which have been mentioned. I think taking an always-on approach is one, where if your goal and ambition is longevity as a brand and you want to secure the future of your business, you have to also think about who are my consumers of the future. And I think maybe that's why we're seeing such focus and interest in platforms like TikTok, which typically have been more of that sort of the Gen Z/millennial demographic. And so think about being in it for the long haul, I guess, that, even though a consumer of today may not be your immediate buyer, there's nothing that would stop that from changing in the future. And I think a really good example of, maybe we talked about the movements that we're seeing within the NFT world, so non-fungible tokens and in the metaverse, you've got ultra premium brands like Gucci and others who are using NFTs and engaging with consumers on a digital asset basis, knowing that maybe a $2,000 to $3,000 Gucci handbag might be out of reach for a certain Gen Z, audience that identifies as female. But they might find a digital asset of, $20, $30 much more affordable. But what it does, I think, it creates that brand mind share from a really early onset. And so as those consumers evolve and as they, enter into the workforce and start having more and more disposable income to spend on digital goods or otherwise, I think what creators can do is be part of that conversation to help brands build that. I think the other thing to remember again is, creators are they're tastemakers, they're trend watchers, they're creative directors, they're small businesses. They know how to build communities. They know how to do engagement on social. And so looking at it as this very sort of commoditized transactional thing of, I'm just going to hire this creator who's going to create a couple of images, and then that's it. I'm going to move on to the next thing. So I think Isabel mentioned like that longevity that you want to build up and continually work with what effectively becomes a squad, and building that mind share from an ambassadorial perspective, working with creators beyond, what it's just this very transactional mode. Think about things like how you can activate their audience for, I don't know, new product development. We spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on focus groups and research all the time. And here are these creators who have got these ready-made built-in audiences that can immediately give you that real-time feedback loop in terms of what should the next flavor of a certain product line, or what should a net new product look like. They can give you that feedback. And so I guess what I'm saying is, don't box yourself into thinking about how a creative collaboration should work, and think beyond how you can activate all this goodness that creators could effectively add to your brand from a sort of future scoping perspective.
Love that. Yes. Isabella, would you want to add something?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just quickly touch on, these like inflationary times. Because what's interesting is that we've conducted a study, and within that study, and we've actually done it in the UK, so this might be, relevant to a lot of you guys, that during these times, life's little luxuries during an economy downturn is really, really high up there. So 59% of Brits have actually purchased an item that gave them like a feeling of kind of like escapism. And 80% of Brits do get, as much joy and pleasure out of like a £15 purchase as they do from like a £250 purchase. So it's just really about that life's little luxuries. And we all know, lipsticks never sell better than in inflationary times, in bad times. So I do believe that, even in inflationary times, it is important to keep in mind that people still need distraction. We're all built this way. Like we need to consume things, and we need distraction, and we want to be distracted. We don't want to like dwell in like all like the bad news. We want to have that kind of escapism. So that's just the one thing to keep in mind, even in bad times. And then how we utilize creators for brands being kind of like future proof is we advise brands to be more. Whereas be more stands for being believable, being efficient, being memorable, organic, relevant, and effective. And just to touch on a few points of that, believable, I mean, creators are the most influential on social media, which, it's just really true that you do follow creators as kind of like tastemakers. You follow creators as you were following, I don't know, editors and like magazines in the older times, where you would just open up, I don't know, Vogue or Elle and Harper's Bazaar, and you'd feel like, oh, that's the trend I have to, follow. But now it's like more diverse, because now it's not one trend that fits all, because that used to be the way, right? I would open up the Vogue and I would be like, okay, this shade really doesn't, fit me, but apparently that's the trend, so I have to jump on that. But right now it's like I can find my own set of creators that I want to follow based on, their taste and like their lifestyle, and maybe their body type or whatever it is. I want to follow them. And so they are so believable to me because I kind of identify with what they're trying to, sell me. So that's the one thing on being believable. And then also touching on, what Isabel said, on being efficient and being efficiently creative. You do have to keep in mind that creativeness is just less expensive and quicker than your typical ad creative. Like you would set, a creative director, and then you have like, I don't know, a producer, and then you would produce the whole like TV ad and whatever it is. A creator is an editor, is a photographer, is a stylist, is a director. They're all in one, you name it. They do it all themselves. And in that way, they can really help brand to reduce production fees, plus having traffic at like no extra cost. So that's just so beneficial. And then also the content licensing part, that's really a huge part, because you can use the content that a creator has created for you for digital use of campaigns, and really just span it across so many channels and have like paid social, e-commerce, whitelisting for just a specific length of time. And you can utilize that content over and over again. Maybe not so much in fast fashion, to be very, straightforward and very honest, because straight fashion, it just changes so quickly that the content you've produced, I don't know, a month ago may not be, useful later on. But for a lot of other verticals, this really works well. And then just briefly on, being organic. Organic and memorable is just really, you need to make sure that the influencers and the creators that you choose are really promoting your product because they love it, because they're authentic in the way of like promoting the product. Because us millennials, or like Gen Z, or the younger generation, they have really been marketed to since they were newborns. Like they have this detector where they just see through bull, excuse my French. And the only way to kind of like circumvent that detector is to be authentic in your way of promoting things. And there is no better way than to utilize creators, again, which we as audiences identify with. So yeah, utilize those creators to be really organic. And then just in terms of efficiency, use ROI, use like all the relevant like measures and trackings that we provide and that other platforms also provide, just to make sure that that your content brings you the right ROI in return.
Wonderful. I love this. So influencer marketing is safe to work with in the future, so to say. And it's more than
I
just
shall hope so.
Thank you, Isabella. Alex and Isabel, do you want to also add something to it? Alex, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think there've been some brilliant points made. I'd add probably just a couple. I mean, I would wholeheartedly agree with the longevity that I think the previous two panelists have mentioned. I think if you form collaborations that exist over a period of time, I think there's a greater sort of affinity from those who follow those influencers. I think absolutely that authentic nature is absolutely key right now. And we fundamentally believe that when influential people talk about the things they love, purely out of that love and not a commercial endorsement, that is about as authentic as you can get. I think there are two other things that I would add to the question of how can creators support brands in future-proofing, one of which is accountability. And we are seeing more and more, and particularly with Gen Z at the moment, that consumers want to know what a brand stands for in this day and age. They want to know socially, they want to know ethically, environmentally, what that brand is doing, how they are doing it. And I think that the best brands are connecting with a sort of a community who will help them tell their message in that way. And we've seen, and we've all got examples of what happens when a brand can get that wrong. It can go spectacularly wrong very quickly. So I think where brands connect with the people who help them talk about what they stand for is a very powerful thing moving forwards. And the other thing I would just very quickly draw on, which we actually see through our platform, is feedback. Where brands are brave enough to put themselves into the hands of people that love them, they get an extraordinary response that they can use to sort of, I suppose, to future-proof what they're doing. So that can be anything from the channels of choice of those creators. And I think it was Isabella who said, you have to be across a multitude of channels. And since we've been going, we have seen our community offer brands exposure on Facebook and then Twitter, and now it's very much sort of Instagram and TikTok. So we are seeing that evolution over a period of time. And that we've actually seen a number of our brands sort of keep up with the creators rather than tell the creators where they want to be seen, which is very interesting. And also often you can get feedback from the community that we've got, which potentially takes your brand into spaces that you wouldn't have otherwise considered. And a very quick example I'd use is Jacuzzi, who came to us looking for lifestyle influencers who they wanted to talk about festival vibes on, I think it was on Facebook, as it were. So this was a while ago. And what they actually ended up with was 3 very famous sports people talking about the powers of recovery on Instagram. And I think where you are brave enough as a brand to say, look, how would you use this and where would you take us? You can actually learn a lot from the community that you engage with. So accountability and feedback would be the 2 that I'd add.
Perfect, thank you. Isabel, what is your take on?
Yeah, there's been some amazing points already. So I guess just a small few to add to that. Basically, I think always on campaigns, I think mentioned earlier already, but if you've got an always on campaign, you're really going to benefit from keeping costs low once you've locked those influencers in and build that relationship with them. We often see influencers are willing to post their YouTube video on Instagram as well to try and drive that traffic for free. And they'll do that as a bit of an extra free thing to boost their own views because they are invested in the content too. So I guess it's cross-channel marketing as well. And I think kind of from a platform point of view for us, we've got to make sure as an agency we listen to our creators and we listen to the brands. So what are their biggest challenges? It used to be discovering influencers, so we feel we've helped to solve that with our AI software, but it's also keeping up with the platform like Instagram's algorithm always changing, so we have to adapt to that pretty regularly as well. So I guess it's just keeping that communication between the creators, ourselves, and the brands going all 3 ways, just to keep, for future proofing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. So we actually had a few more questions for the panel. However, I've just been alerted that there are a fair few questions in the chat box. So we're going to move straight to the chat box now. So I'm going to hand over to Michaela, and she's going to take us through some of the questions.
Hey all, so there are quite a few questions, so if we don't actually make it through them all today, we will take those away, get the panelists to answer, and then feed them back to you in appropriate time later. So the first question we have is, how do you find and engage influencers on Awin?
Is that directed specifically to someone, or can anyone pick that up?
It's not, so I'm guessing maybe
you want to pick this up?
Yeah, I'll pick this one up. So we have a dedicated influencer team that is able to help and assist with finding any influencers. We have a few different ways of working, but we always recommend as well working with some of our amazing partners to find influencers. This can all be tracked through Awin with each of the partners that you're here seeing today. So yeah, we've got a few emails at the end, so you can reach out to us and we can assist in that way as well, put you in contact with the best person, manage campaigns direct, however you want to do it. We can have conversations about that.
Brilliant. How does a small company get started reaching out to influencers, and where do you find the data to do this to cut your teeth? Not sure if that would be a good question maybe for...
that might be a good one for Alex, actually, with the room,
With the room and the small...
So I would have a slightly different approach, and I don't want to bang the drum of Room Unlock, but funny enough, I would give you 2 examples of small businesses, and the reason we've created the company we've created is because I have seen the other side of the fence, so to speak, and I was going to use this earlier. I've had 2 examples of small businesses who've reached out to me. I've got a very, very tepid social media presence, which has come about from farting around on television for a couple of decades. And in the last month, I have had a beef jerky company from Texas who very kindly slipped into my DMs and said, we'd love to pay you $50 to talk about 3 packets of our beef jerky. Okay. Even better than that, I've had another one, which is called Mini Activewear, which is a very impressive female athletic wear brand who've come not once, but twice and said that apparently I'm the perfect person to endorse their sports bras and leggings. It is 2022. I'm up for absolutely anything, but I got to believe that brand has got better people to collaborate with if they are going to fly. So what I'm kind of highlighting here is that, and we've got brilliant people on this call who are doing it extremely well, but there are a lot of people out there doing it very, very badly. And as a small business, you can spend a huge amount of time outreaching to people who you think are going to potentially change the course of your business. I think you will end up spending a lot of that time knocking on doors that don't open. You'll end up collaborating with people who don't give you what you're looking for. the reason we have built this business is to sort of fundamentally change all of that, which is that you create an opportunity on our platform and you say, this is what we are, this is where we're going, this is our purpose, and we're looking to collaborate with people who buy into what we're about, who'd like to help us on our journey and genuinely got an interest, a love or a need for our product. And then we bring people to you and say, hey, that looks fantastic, it fits with who I am, and I'm really keen to help you and to go on that journey with you. So there are ways of outreaching and finding the right people, but I think fundamentally it can be a fairly thankless task, particularly as a small business. The ability to find the people who are genuinely interested in what you're doing and to help you with that, based purely on that love, need, or genuine connection, I think is a better way to go about it. That's not too much of a drum bang, but that's what we do.
Actually, just off of the back of that as well, I know I mentioned earlier, I kind of went through the top line summary of what each of the partners here do. We are going to share that as the one pager again, which will kind of give you a lot of insight on what the minimum requirements are, what they do, how you can reach out, everything like that. So it works for small to large businesses. We've got a range of different options as well. So that will be shared after the call.
Brilliant. I think that lends nicely to, there's a couple of questions on what platforms do you use to access influencer databases, how do you find influencers suitable for your brand? So I think maybe that could be answered on that one pager, unless any of the panel have anything to contribute with that.
Yeah, I think that can be answered with the one pager. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So just to wrap it up nicely, because I think we're kind of coming to the end, there is a question here that when it comes to campaign focused on branding, what KPIs would you recommend to focus on? And what's the time frame to see whether the campaign has been successful or not?
Should we ask all of the panel this? Isabella, did you want to
yeah.
start? You go first for LTK and then we can wrap it up after that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. It actually comes to, what KPIs are important to you, because we work towards your KPIs. So if, you are looking after, I don't know, branding and awareness, then that's the set of influencers we're going to cast for you, in terms of like branding and awareness. If you're looking for performance only, then of course we're going to cast the influencers that, have the highest, conversion rates, engagement rates, and then also looking at, average order values, because that also matters. If you're a brand that, sells like rather low-priced products, then you don't want to go for an influencer that has like an average order value of, I don't know, like 200, because they might not have the right following for you, and they might not, convert well for you, whereas they maybe do for a different brand. So it really just comes down to what KPIs you want to follow and you want to have, and then these are the benchmarks that we will work towards. And in terms of like timings, that really depends on how long you have set the campaign. So as Isabel pointed out, always on is always like the best measure to have, because in the end you have, I don't know, like 6 months or a year where you can really like evaluate your campaign. But we as a network, we will always give you, like weekly or monthly reportings where you can check back and just see where, your money might be spent better, where we can tweak and optimize the performance. So that really, it just really depends on you. And we as LTK, we do cater to your needs. And I'm sure that, the other panelists are doing the same.
Alex, should we go to you next as well?
This is where, and as a founder in a business, it's always important to surround yourself with wizards far more intelligent than you are. And I've got some very good people in the team who would give you all of the detail that you could possibly want from the campaigns that we run. I would sort of echo Isabella. Often it comes down to what the brand is looking for. And I think in this day and age, you can track everything that you need incredibly accurately. We talk about, we actually capture all of the content that our collaborators produce, and we're able to therefore deep dive into the engagements, the eyeballs, click-throughs, clickbacks, etc., in terms of the content itself, and then obviously the traffic that is generated outside of those engagements as well. So I think the answer to the question is whatever data points you need in 2022, you're pretty capable of finding. I hope that's not too generic, but whatever you need, we'll find a way to do it.
No, absolutely not. Thank you. Isabel, did you want to answer the last part of that question about the time frame to see whether a campaign has been successful?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say with an always on campaign, we're running one for a German kids entertainment brand at the moment, is we put breakpoints in the campaign. And these breakpoints allow us to reflect on the influencers and their posts so far, but also allows us to make recommendations. And actually, those influencers, yes, we want to keep influencer A on for this part, or we want to give them a bit of a break, just so it's not saturating their feed, if you like. So I guess it's tricky. I'd probably say a minimum of 3 months to properly start to see the results, particularly if there's a link that you're trying to track. But it completely depends on the KPIs. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. And then Fatty, just to finish on you, final notes from you on that.
I'll try and be really quick. So we're able to report everything in real time through our platform. So we have a reporting console that sits within the VAMP platform. And because we're using APIs in real time, I think there's actually like a 10-minute delay perhaps, we can show results instantly. So the moment that brief and the content gets posted, and it's everything from engagement metrics. So it's things like likes, saves, comments, shares. If the brand has given us pixel tracking and they want the creators to include either like a swipe up or a sticker that they can click on, they can instantly start to see those e-commerce metrics coming into their platform as well. And for some of our subscription customers, what we also do is produce post-campaign reports where we also give them insight, because obviously we're sitting on a lot of data as a business. So we can anonymize a lot of that and give them insights around, well, is this good or is it not good? How does this compare to maybe sort of other brands within my sector or the industry as a whole? So we try and give as much of that information in real time, obviously, and we can do that. And then we try and give those extra sort of qualitative metrics as well to give brands a sense of, was this successful? Did it work? Did it make any difference whatsoever?
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I think that wraps up our questions. And just a final note from us. Thank you, everyone that's joined us today. We hope you found all the information useful. We are going to share a lot more of the questions that were asked in the chat following the call, along with the newsletter and the one-pager I mentioned with all of the information to reach out to our amazing panelists. Thanks so much as well to the Awin marketing team for setting this up for us. Yeah, as I said, everything will be covered and sent out via them. And finally, just a huge thanks to our amazing panel today. Looking forward to driving lots of new partnerships off of the back of this call and off of the amazing insight you've shared with us. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Simone, I forgot to say thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.